I'm going to act as the MC and the CIO today. Behind me is the other Joe, who will act as our narrator. We've got Aaron here as well. Aaron will play a couple roles. He'll play a line of business leader and a tier 2 operations analyst, along with a business continuity manager. You'll notice a few of them have hats. The hats are color-coded, right? So the top role for Aaron, line of business, he doesn't need a hat. When he steps into his tier 2 role, green hat. He steps into business continuity manager, goes with the gray hat. Next to him is Donovan. Donovan's going to be our IT ops manager and our CISO. You're in for a fun day. Oh, yeah. And then we got Matt, EC, my good buddy. How you doing, Matt?
Doing well.
Awesome. So Matt's going to play app support manager, cyber resilience manager, and SOC analyst. And last but not least, the real fun guy, legal IT, Daniel. How you doing?
Good.
Good. All right. That being said, let's get into it here. All right, so scene 1 is going to drop us right in to the discovery. It's early in the morning. Some things are going wrong in California. Well, let's get into it.
We're at a bullpen in an IT operations center in California. The Tier 2 analyst has shown up for his 5:30 a.m. shift, and it's taken a few minutes to grab a cup of coffee and get settled. At 5:45 a.m., we open to him logging into the operations console to see the e-commerce website is down.
Oh no, this cannot be happening. Why is the website down? I should have gotten a page about this hours ago. This is not going to go over well. I'm sure I'm going to get blamed. But let me get things back up and running first, and I'll deal with the rest of this later.
Several nervous seconds tick by.
What the hell? All the executables in the data files have been renamed. Nothing is running. This is not good. Wait a second. What's this file? What the fuck is we have your data.txt?
The analyst continues to type on his keyboard for a moment, then stops and immediately picks up the phone. The time is now 6 a.m. The Tier 2 analyst calls the IT operations manager on duty and wakes him up.
Donovan, it's Aaron. Sorry to wake you up with bad news, but I think we have a big problem. The website was down when I came in this morning. Been trying to bring it back up, but the library looks like it's all renamed. There's this text file in here that says we've been hit by ransomware. Shit. Are you sure you're looking at the right screen? Can you access anything? Oh, I've checked it 3 times, I'm sure, and no, all I can see is that the files are encrypted, and the ransom note gives instructions to contact them.
Okay, before we do anything, we need to convene a major incident call. That would include the CIO, representatives from IT operations, application support, business continuity, and information security.
The Tier 2 analyst kicks off the MIM process, which notifies everyone in the call tree that there's been an emergency and invites them to join the conference call. The time is now 7 a.m. Pacific, and the bridge has been opened. Let's listen to the call.
My lead analyst came in to find that our e-commerce site has been down since about 10:30 last night. He couldn't kick off the restart scripts because they were all encrypted. We can't read them. We do have a ransom note that says we can get the decryption key by establishing contact with them. In the meantime, I've called the application support guys to see if they can reload the files from their release libraries. They're working on that now, and we'll report back as soon as they have an update. In the meantime, we're going to keep this bridge open while we continue to check the rest of the production environment. Please reach out to your manager and let them know what's happening. They can join the bridge if they have any suggestions or questions.
They break from the MIM call for now, leaving it open. 30 minutes pass until the application support manager joins. The time is now 7:30 a.m. Pacific.
We've been trying to figure out what's been impacted in the attack. My team has checked all 24 of the servers for the app, database, and web tiers, and they all show signs of compromise. Some are missing 1 or 2 key files, and some are missing all of the content. I mean, the content's there, but it's been encrypted and we can't unlock it. We're going to have to restore them from our backup and get the system back online. The other problem that we saw was that the release library for the point-of-sale systems in the physical stores was also compromised. They automatically download the latest release content from the servers at 12:01 each day. So just after midnight, they downloaded a bunch of unusable garbage. This is a huge problem for us because now the registers are unusable, until we can recreate the release content and trigger a new download.
Wait, so you're saying we can't process any sales transactions in stores?
That's right, at least not electronically.
Okay, the first store in Chicago opens at 11 o'clock Central. So that's 9 a.m. our time, which is less than 2 hours. Where is Aaron from Business Continuity? Has he not joined the call yet?
Doesn't look like it. I'll call him.
Okay, thanks. I'll call Donovan, our CISO. I'm sure his team has already briefed him, but he needs to hear this directly from me.
The gravity of this update sinks in. In the next few minutes, the CISO joins, and after being read into what has happened thus far, he officially declares this to be a cyber incident. Following protocol, he then brings in legal and HR onto the call, who decide to notify all involved via email that any and all written correspondence related to this issue is considered privileged and confidential. They explain that that means that no one involved can discuss the incident with any internal or external parties unless those parties have been read into the event by the CISO or his empowered team members. The official declaration of a cyber event and hearing the imposing formal language from the legal team gives the situation a new weight. Everyone on the call feels a pit in their stomach form as they realize it's now 8 a.m. Pacific and there's only 1 hour left until the first store opens in Chicago. With over $433,800 already lost during the 9 hours that the website has been down, the team is now faced with the challenge of what to do with the stores.
All right, so that is the end of scene one, the discovery. So what are we seeing? What are we feeling? What are we hearing? Well, one, I'd argue that a lot of things broke, right? The alerting process was down for 78 hours before they found out about it. It seems like there's a lot of people trying to help, but I don't know if anyone's actually helping yet, right? So I think that's one thing that jumps out at me. I think, too, they're talking about the MIM call. Anyone ever been in one of those meetings? They're pretty expensive, right? Also, what I've observed with those calls, it's not really the goal of those meetings to figure out what went wrong. It's just to prove that you weren't the problem, right? So, there's a whole finger-pointing thing going on. Question for you to think about. We talked about, we're backup companies, right? Cyber recovery companies, right? Do you consider backups a cyber tool? Does your backup team talk to your cybersecurity team? Do they talk about how they would recover? Do they talk about how they would harden the backup environment? Have they taken any action on it? These are the questions I think we need to bring back. These are the ones that fight people in that office. So at this stage, Teller's been down for 9 hours. We're about $433K in the hole. And we still haven't actually made contact with the ransomware. So there's a lot we don't know. So let's get into scene two.
The time is now 8:30 a.m. Pacific. We're back on the major incident management call, and 30 precious minutes have ticked by. The Cyber Resilience Business Continuity Manager joins the bridge with the line of business leader and is briefed on the current recovery efforts.
I wanted to bring everyone up to speed on current plans for the retail stores. We've been discussing the issue with the point of sale systems. The line of business leader understands the current problems, but his view is that, well, actually, I'll let him speak to it.
Thanks. We've been discussing whether or not it makes sense to open as planned with our senior leadership team, given the current issues in our physical stores. There are a few perspectives that we've considered, like the impact to revenue if we don't open, the media inquiries that will surely come as the word spreads, etc. What I really need from this team is your realistic expectation of recovering the point of sale systems in the next few hours so that I can make a recommendation.
Understood. I'm sure that you've been brought up to speed on the ransomware attack and that we're working on restore operations as quickly as possible. I'm committed to having everything back online later today, and I have a high degree of confidence that will be fully recovered by tonight. I agree with you that keeping the stores closed would likely only make things worse, especially if we have a way to continue selling without a point of sale system for a while.
So we do have a plan that we've just developed with the help of your team, but it involves some older technologies and processes that none of our in-store personnel have ever used before, but we think it will work as a temporary solution as long as we're only talking about a few hours until we're back up.
Oh, we absolutely are. I know you're already working with my team, and we'll support your decision either way. Which way are you leaning?
So we've already have the sunk costs with the buildings, the staff, the inventory, so going manual until we're able to reestablish operations is probably the better option. Even though sales will be impacted, keeping them closed guarantees that we'll maximize the losses, and we just can't afford to do that given that we have a viable option to operate them without the registers. I'll confirm with my leadership, but opening as planning was the decision that we came to as well, and after hearing your comfort level, I'm sure they'll be on board too. So let's go ahead and move on knowing that we're gonna go ahead and open.
The time is now 9 a.m. The business continuity manager hops off the line to supervise the rollout of the store sales transaction process without the use of registers.
Hey, app support team, IT ops, where are we with the restoration efforts?
So we've been working with our IT analysts to restore the affected code, but our application release libraries, as well as the application source code libraries, they're all encrypted, and we're unable to recover them.
Yes, that's right. I'm not sure how widespread the problem is, but at this point, all of the normal routes to recover operationally are impacted. We're using our configuration management database to identify which servers and databases are used in the web app to find existing usable backups to get us back online. The downside is that proper recovery relies on the application teams to keep the CMDB up to date and current. If it's not current, we could recover incomplete data, which could break the app, or worst case, there could be compliance risk with not knowing where the PCI and PII data is.
CMDB, what are the chances it's current?
I don't know enough right now to give you a confident answer. Let me double check and I'll circle back.
On my end, I just spoke with the senior partner at our external security consultant, and our teams are connected. They have all their best people working on it to give us some guidance. We should have an update soon.
The call breaks for now, with IT ops hoping for an accurate CMDB and the CISO hoping that the external security consultant can offer significant help. The time is now 9:30 a.m. Pacific. As part of the team continues working on the store opening, two teams that don't typically work together have been trying to collaborate with the external security consultant. The internal cyber resilience team is a part of IT ops and is primarily focused on restoring operations. The cyber incident response team is part of the CISO's org and is focused on managing the forensics and threat analysis of the event. Both are on the line now with a representative from the external security consultant.
Thanks for jumping in so quickly, Donovan. We're hoping you can help us. Our number one goal is to restore operations as quickly as possible. That needs to be our focus. Unfortunately, this isn't a scenario we previously defined in our business continuity planning exercises.
Well, while obviously we do need to restore, the first priority is to find out where and how this attack originated so that when we do restore, we don't have to get wiped out again. We've quarantined the impacted servers and isolated them from the production network. We're using CrowdStrike to gather what we can from the affected endpoints, and we'll have that information made available to you.
That's a good start. I've looked at the ransomware note. I'm going to guess that this is a platypus attack. It fits their TTPs, and we've been seeing a lot of their handiwork in the last couple of years. We'll get started on analyzing what you've gathered. We have some IOCs that we can share with you guys to start checking the rest of your environment for other infections and to get to reasonable confirmation that this is in fact platypus.
The call breaks with the external security consultant analyst promising to get that IOC list over as soon as possible. The time is now 11 a.m. Pacific. Let's check in on the MIM call. Cyber Legal is now on the line and opens the call.
Yeah, this is legal speaking. After consulting with the general counsel, CISO, and CIO, and federal law enforcement, we've established that contact within the ransomware group. The ransom that they set, $1 million, and they want it in 3 days.
Putting a number and deadline to the event makes everyone shift in their seat. Sensing the pressure rising, the CIO speaks up.
Listen, team, I'm confident that this team can get our data and systems back online quickly. We drill for business interruptions all the time, and this is no different. We run thousands of backup jobs daily. We've spent millions building our defense in-depth approach for years, which includes a 3-2-1 strategy. I'm confident that all the preparation will pay off, and I have no intention of paying $1 million to a bunch of criminals in Russia.
Acting on that assurance, the leadership team decides not to pay the ransom at this point. The next contact with the ransomware group is scheduled for 24 hours from now. All efforts now turn to finding the last known good recovery point to get back up and running, as well as working with the external security consultant to detect the scale of the attack and how to respond. Unfortunately, the 2 p.m. MIM call comes and goes with no demonstrable progress and 2 pieces of very bad news. Number 1, no luck finding a last known good backup. And 2, backup scanned are showing signs of encryption. The time is now 6 p.m. Pacific. Everyone is back on the MIM call.
All right, team, finally, some good news. Everyone, the operations team has identified a set of backups that do not appear to be compromised, and they have begun restoring. The estimated time of completion is 6 hours from now, right around midnight, after which the application teams will restore the application server, encode images, and conduct acceptance testing before bringing the systems back online fully. Our next update will be at 2 a.m. to allow the app team to do their work after the restore is completed. In the meantime, the CEO is asking for an update. I'd like to hear from our cyber resilience team.
So in terms of meeting the RPO and RTO business recovery objectives, the RPO is essentially unachievable due to the lack of a recent known good backup that would provide the required 5-minute data recovery point. We've already exceeded the RTO of 12 hours as of 10:30 this morning.
Yeah, Joe, unfortunately, all of the stores have reported significant impact from the manual checkout processes. We've had long lines to start out, but customers eventually just left frustrated. They didn't make very many purchases, and store managers are reporting an expectation of 75% revenue loss at this point.
No one seems to be envious of the CIO's task to give that update to the CEO. They drop off the call, planning to rejoin for the 2 a.m. call after the restoration and the application testing is complete. The data restoration was completed successfully just before midnight, and the application teams began restoring the application and conducting testing. At 1 a.m. Pacific, the application support manager unexpectedly rejoins the bridge with an urgent update.
We lost the damn test environment again. We nearly completed the acceptance test and the system went down. Is Donovan on? I'm trying to find out when we'll be back up.
After a barrage of texts, the IT ops manager joins the call. The app support manager restates his unfortunate update, and the IT ops manager goes to investigate. The time is now 2 a.m. Pacific. All key personnel are on the call.
The application and data files look like they did before we restored them. So we did some checks on the file attributes, and we found that they were re-encrypted again just a few minutes ago. I hate to say it, but the only way that's possible is if the malware is still in our environment and triggering reinfections. The CIO also just asked that we pull the off-site tapes, bring them on-site, and then try to restore from them. I know the data's over like 30 days, but I don't know what else to do at this point. Everything we have on premises seems to be infected with whatever malware is doing this. It'll take Iron Mountain until about 10 a.m. to get here.
Yeah, this is legal. On my end, we had an emergency call at midnight with HR, CISO, and the media team to respond to the incoming media requests from the press. They've been building throughout the day. Exec management has authorized the media team to respond with an acknowledgement of quote-unquote ongoing technical issues that are being addressed, and that Keller has quote-unquote full confidence that it will be able to resume normal online operations and retail operations very shortly.
After a few more updates, everyone prepares to sign off for the night until cyber legal suddenly chimes in.
Whoa, 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 hold on everybody. Unfortunately, we just received a second email from the ransomware actors. They've increased it to 1.5.
Whoa, wait. Why would they increase it? We still have over 50 hours left to pay.
Yeah, we do, but it looks like they're just trying to up the pressure on us. Apparently, it's a fairly common practice. I'm sure our CISO can confirm this as well. They know they're in control and can demand whatever they want.
An uneasy silence settles in the room. We hear the CIO answer another call in the background. After hanging up, he addresses the MIM.
Well, that was Aaron, our CEO. In light of the new ransom amount and the current lack of progress and recovering, she's convening an emergency board meeting to review the decision not to pay the ransom.
They close the call, with the CIO looking decidedly less confident than a few hours earlier. He is going to have to manage the politics of who will be blamed if this next recovery attempt isn't successful. He'll also have to manage expectations around the data lost if they have to recover from 30-day-old tapes. He desperately tries to think of other creative solutions, and who else can help? Internally, he starts questioning his own decisions during the day and is frustrated that he's not more prepared. As he pieces together his presentation for the board, he's starting to consider this may be a career-defining event.
All right, so that was the longest read. End of scene 2. I mean, I'll just ask you a question. Am I screwed right now? I'm the CIO. I have no chance of recovering. And the thing that jumped up to me is just how quickly they began to restore things before they actually knew what was going on in the environment. And I think that was the first line of the scene itself, was we continue to work on restoring without actually knowing what's going on. So that's a little bit of a problem. But I think a lot of people, unfortunately, feel like, hey, if we get hit with something like this, we have a DR plan, we're good. I'm going to tell you, having been on site through many of these, DR plan's no good. Especially if you store that plan somewhere on your file server, and the bad guys get it and encrypt it. Seen that one too many times. So there's different needs with a cyber recovery compared to a fire, flood, natural disaster type of thing. Right? We'll get into a couple of those. One of the differences is a concept I like to call payload versus Pac-Man. Right? So the bad guys are getting into your networks and your data sets and what have you, and they're deploying malware. Right? That malware is going to live there for sometimes a long time, oftentimes a short amount of time, a number of days, sometimes hours. But you're going to have two problems, right? So they're going to hit go. The malware is going to wake up. It's going to start playing Pac-Man with your data. So you need to determine what data got encrypted so you know what to recover. You're not going to recover everything. Right? These guys are good. Right? The lockpick gang can do, I don't know, probably 300,000-400,000 files every 5 or 10 minutes. But you have hundreds of thousands, if not billions of files. So how are you going to find that needle in a haystack? What tool is going to tell you what to recover? Because your metrics, by the way, you just hit it right here. Amount of downtime, amount of data loss. Those are the two things that matter. Right? And if you can't determine what was impacted, you're going to either spend a lot of time figuring it out or you're going to throw away a bunch of good data. The second problem, this one's even harder. This is the longest pole in the tent of recovery from a data standpoint, is the fact that you've backed up malware for a number of days, if not longer. You need a way to go in there and figure out your most clean backup. You need a way to scan all of your backups for indicators of compromise to determine this is the cleanest way to get back up and running. That's the problem that Keller's really struggling with. So as we move on to scene 3, there's going to be no read. And I do want to point out something. So our internal version of this, we used different actors. These people are all very famous in my company. I'll give you that. So you're going to see some different names, like I'm John Murphy right now, Alex, Donovan, the CISO. So don't be confused by that. We're just trying to reuse some more content. Kick it off.
Aaron, good to see you.
You too. I think we've got everybody here.
Yep. And hey, Aaron, real quick, before we begin, just want to remind everyone in the room that all actions and justifications and discussions from this point forward are considered privileged and confidential. So keep that in mind, everyone.
Got it. Thanks, Britt. All right, everybody, let's start and summarize what we know already. We've made contact with the people that have encrypted our data. They initially asked for $1 million in 72 hours. That's since been increased to 1.5 million. We have about 50 hours left to determine if we're going to pay this amount or not. The purpose of this meeting is to determine if we're going to pay. And I'd like to start with John to give an overview of the current status, please.
Great, thanks, Aaron. We've been impressed by the sophistication of the attack so far. This group seems to have a great deal of knowledge about how large IT shops like ours operate. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that they spent time working with one of our competitors and are just looking to scare us into paying the ransom. My team is on it though, and we're making good progress with our testing and restoration efforts. As a precaution, we're having our offsite tape backup delivered later today while the operations and application support teams continue their recovery efforts. We remain really confident that we'll be able to restore from a clean backup and have our systems back online by end of day PST.
John, has anything worked so far with the recovery effort?
It's been a mixed bag, JP. We found that much of the content that we need is in our backups and not encrypted. So that's good. But because we're unable to identify where the malware is hiding, the value of the backups is diminished because it surfaces again and reinfects our environment. That's bitten us once already and cost us multiple hours of lost time. Alex and his team have been great in helping us to understand why that's happening, and I'll let him speak to that in his update. But the net impact is that it's not always the same files that get encrypted, so we're having to try and piece together what we need bit by bit, literally.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned tape. What's the downside of recovering from tape? Why don't we just start with that?
Well, right now we're considering it the last resort for a couple of reasons, the most important of which is the data freshness. If tape's the only way to recover, we need to apply all the point-in-time snapshots for the last 30 days to the database to get us back in sync where we were on Saturday night, provided that those snapshots are even clean. Because of that, our plan is to stay the course and recover the files that we know are needed from disk. Once we have clean copies of each, we can put them in an isolated environment and move on to the next. Wash, rinse, repeat until we have everything that we need to recover.
Got it. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. David, I'd like to shift. Can you give me an overview of our financial impact at this time?
Yeah, sure. We have a total impact of about 2.76 million.
Okay, great. Thank you. Alex, over to you. What do we know about these attackers?
Well, this particular group is well known in the IC.
Sorry, IC?
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's a little shorthand for intelligence community. This group is linked to a certain nation state that I won't name, but the attack vector that they use, we believe, is a zero-day exploit in one of our SaaS applications. We haven't seen any proof in the wild yet, but it's probably because it's difficult to replicate. My team has been disassembling it in our lab, and we believe the primary means of attack is to leverage a precise combination of remote code execution and a buffer overflow vulnerability exploit to overwhelm the authentication mechanism, quickly escalate privilege, and begin lateral exploration of the environment. The virus is able to evade our defenses due to its polymorphic nature. We believe that both the code and the encryption targets change each time it runs, which makes it very difficult to isolate and remediate.
Alex, I'm not sure I followed what you just said. Can you just tell us simply how did it happen and can we prevent it from happening again?
No, not right now, not yet.
Okay, Alex, I'd like you to continue to work on that and get back to us on the next update, please. David, let's shift back to, you mentioned 2.7 million earlier. Can you give us some more detail on what that is?
Yeah, sure. So this is having a significant impact on our fiscal plan. John, Alex, we need your teams to take care of this as soon as possible. We invest a great deal of budget year over year on cyber and business applications and resilience. I'd have expected that we'd be able to handle this type of event pretty easily. Clearly, that's not the case. And as I mentioned, we've lost 2.76 million in the last 36 hours. We continue to lose money by the hour. Our models show we're on pace to lose about 200 grand an hour. And that's not even including the lasting financial impact from the reputational and brand damage, which right now, unfortunately, is hard to calculate. I do wish the news were better.
Thanks, David. So that's our direct physical impact. Is there any potential of fines or anything else that we need to consider?
Yeah, certainly another big line item. Unfortunately, my team doesn't have any visibility into that yet.
Okay, great. Do you have any idea on that front?
Yeah, I can speak to that. First off, it's important to note that right now we only have a potential data breach. I stress potential because we don't know for certain yet whether or not data was exfiltrated. So that's where we are right now. Now, if we do determine that there has been a material breach involving PII, we'll need to notify the privacy officer in every state. That's the first step. That's usually the attorney general for every state. I'll get back to you on specific state-by-state requirements, but each state has different privacy laws and disclosure requirements for PII incidents. So I'll update you there. Our notifications will have to include states where customers crossed state lines to shop or bought from the online portal. So we're effectively talking about notifying all 50 states. The biggest potential regulatory impact right now, though, is from GDPR. Our online web app does have European customers, and they're protected by GDPR. So for those that may not be aware, GDPR has very specific targets for when we have to notify and how much potential fines are for failing to meet those reporting guidelines. So the current GDPR guidelines carry fines of up to 4% of global revenue. So we're potentially looking at a $40 million fine.
Okay, so how long do we have to notify them if we're certain there's a breach of PII?
We have a maximum of 72 hours to notify the EU. So as a next step, we need to go investigate what types of data have been exfiltrated. And so if we find that EU PII was compromised specifically, Keller will have until Wednesday night to take action to make the notification. I'd like to go ahead and request to retain expert outside counsel to help prepare. We're going to have a raft of state, federal, civil lawsuits in the US, as well as GDPR fine lawsuits and other potential damages in the EU.
Sure, approved. Let's go ahead and get going on that. Before we wrap on updates, is there anything from HR, IT?
No, nothing on the HR side right now.
No, I think we covered everything in John's update.
Okay, thanks everybody for the updates. I think we're going to break now. Everyone, please be available in case we need any additional information. The board's going to chat now and vote on what we think we should do on paying the ransom.
All right.
Thanks,
sir.
Thank you.
All right, so that was fun. Interesting cast of characters. I'm not sure which one my favorite. The CFO reminded me of my dad. Like when I was a kid, I'd go and ask him for a bike and he'd like, I just bought you one, like, you know, that type of thing. Cyber legal adds a new weight to this, and quite honestly, they get involved, legal gets involved in almost every one of these attacks that I've seen. If you don't, by the way, explicitly have a recovery plan that lists your trusted partners, that's one of your action items leaving this. We've literally had people who've been hit, customers of ours, and we've not been able to help them because their legal wouldn't let us, even though we have NDAs in place and all that other stuff. So you have to have it specifically called out in your recovery plan. I think one other kind of theme I want to touch on here is the conversation between technology and the boardroom. I think the CISO probably played that part really well here. Your voice is much better than his. I couldn't understand a word Mr. Alex said there. But you know, he's up there like he's got marbles in his mouth. He's using all this technical terms. And the board member's just like, how do we stop this? Right? So I think that speaks to a couple things. But you know, one of those is I think the security orgs need a larger voice within these type of meetings, right? And I think that's something we're seeing a lot right now is just the change of those org structures reporting and you know, who they report to and the type of risk that organizations are willing to address. So at this point, I mean, again, Keller's been down for close to 35 hours, close to $3 million in the hole, and bad guys want $1.5 million bucks, right? So things aren't looking that great. So as we get into scene 4, this is all about sensitive data. This is a really hot topic these days. And let's join into the incident response call.
The time is now 11 a.m. Pacific on Cyber Monday. The Cyber Incident Response Manager calls a meeting with the appropriate groups to determine if what is reflected in the CMDB is even correct. This will be critical to understanding the business risk of this incident. Let's join the call.
We need to report to the legal team soon to confirm that their understanding of the risk involved in this potential breach is accurate. I'm asking each of you to honestly evaluate the information from the CMDB and the nightly reports and tell us if that data is correct or if it needs to be changed. This is definitely not the time to talk about why or how they're incorrect. We only care about whether they are correct or not so that the lawyers can advise the board of the potential risk exposure and determine next steps. We've checked the CMDB and it looks like the systems were already processing confidential data, but not highly confidential data. Do these applications store credit card information or personal user information like full name, address, and social security number?
Yeah, for sure they do. It looks like whoever initially entered that information for the data types that we processed didn't accurately record the classification. And unfortunately, the periodic recertifications that we do didn't catch it either. That information really needs to be changed to highly confidential information. We also have a future deliverable to encrypt that information. It's in the backlog, and we've had so many other high priorities to address that we haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay, so it looks like the number of records that we're showing in the CMDB is 9.5 million for the web application, but my latest reports show that we're now over 12 million, so we should update that. We also need to alert legal that an extra 2.5 million records containing HCI may have been exposed. Can you confirm that the latest report is accurate, Donovan?
Yes, confirmed. We extract that information directly from the database following the nightly backup, so it's current as of yesterday.
The time is now 1:30 p.m. Pacific. The CMDB has been updated with the accurate record count, and the data classification has been changed to highly confidential. The IT operations manager and the cyber legal team rejoined the MIM call to give the update.
Yeah, so bad news. We just confirmed that there's two big changes in information that affect the risk assessment. Number one, the web app was previously classified as confidential, but it should have been classified as highly confidential. It definitely contains PII. Number two, there's an additional 2.5 million records in that application. So the total highly confidential records are just over 12 million.
All right, this is legal. That is a large increase into how we're managing the exposure. So I'm glad you're letting us know. Please forward me that report so that I can have that exact number, and do not distribute it to anybody else unless I instruct you to. Alert me if you find any more discrepancies.
All right, so that's the end of scene 4. Anyone in this room have a perfectly manicured CMDB that they're really proud of? How come no one's raising their hands? Anyone see any hands raised? No? Huh. All right, so let's talk a little bit about single extortion. So there's this concept of double and triple extortion attacks out there. Single extortion, bad guys get in, encrypt your data, say pay me. Double extortion, they do that, then they exfiltrate it, say even if you recover, pay me. Anyone know what triple extortion is? It's when they crack into the data and start calling the people that have been victimized to pressure you to pay. That happened to me with my kid's school. No joke. I get LifeLock for my kid's school. There's been a couple incidences. There was one that's very public with a school system in the upper Midwest, K-12, big district, where when they were hit, the bad guys exfiltrated student psychological profiles, disciplinary records, I mean, about the worst things you could have out in the public for. So this extortion, this double extortion, this exfiltration problem is not going away anytime soon. I think it was just last week, there was an incident where a threat actor got into a US-based company. That company did not disclose the breach, so the threat actor was nice enough to call the SEC on behalf of that company. So that's an evolution of tactics. So we're gonna start seeing that more. I mean, they were posting this on dark web before, Tor browsers, stuff like that. It's now in plain text, being put on the public internet. So the bad guys are really ratcheting up their pressure. Anyone heard of software called Progress Move It? It's a pretty popular piece of software. It's the bane of many people's existence for the last 6 months. So it's a secure file transfer software. In essence, what the bad guys have done have attacked all of these companies, and it's a supply chain style attack. There's been over 3,000 global organizations hit by this Move It breach in the last 6 months. Anyone here live in Maine? The state of Maine? The state of Maine announced that every citizen's data was spilled during that attack. We've not seen one incident of encryption in any of those attacks. Again, close to 3,000 of them. So the bad guys are evolving their tactics. The question is, are we evolving our practices to keep up with it? Do we know where our sensitive data lies today? Do we know where the open access is? Are we taking steps to mitigate that risk? Post-breach, this is the #1 question your cyber insurer, or maybe even the FBI will ask you. The FBI will probably roll in with printed reams of the sensitive data they found. But your cyber insurer will say, show me the sensitive data impact before we do anything. Onus is on you to figure that out. So we're going to get into scene 5 now. Keller's down almost 40 hours. They're down 3.5 million, and they got to contact the bad guys and figure out what to do. Let's get into scene 5.
Keller's cyber legal and external counsel have compared these results with a small data extract from the ransomware group that was provided to assure Keller and that the data was actually taken and could be decrypted by the attackers at will. Because the extract contained examples of PII as well as credit card information, both of which were stored in an unencrypted format by the applications, the recommendation has been made to the board, CISO, and CIO that we should assume that we are officially on the clock in terms of meeting the various data breach reporting requirements of the local, state, and federal authorities, as well as the European Union regulators. The board is also committed to launching a full assessment of the problems with the classification and volume of data in Keller systems once the ransomware event has been resolved to ensure that the risk can be properly quantified for future needs. CIO and CISO have been informed that the cost of the assessment, which will be carried out by an independent outside authority, will have to be covered from the existing CIO budget in the next calendar year. No additional funding will be provided, given the likelihood that any cyber insurance coverage will be limited due to the numerous issues found so far with Keller's cyber resiliency capabilities. The time is now 9 p.m. Pacific. The external security consultant analyst is on a call with the Keller SOC analyst and line of business leader. He's explaining the process for how to discover how far back this malware infection goes. Let's listen in.
The team has been working to identify the ransomware actors responsible for the attack. Based on known tactics and techniques and procedures, we have a 90% confidence level that this was, in fact, the work of the Platypus gang. We've identified a set of attack vectors that we believe were used to infiltrate Keller cyber defenses and gather the operational intelligence needed to remain undetected while planning the attack. As a next step, we need to have the Keller threat hunting team leverage the specific IOCs to hunt through the rest of the environment for any signs of them. This will help us determine how much remediation work it will take to clean up the environment and prevent anyone else from using them against you again. Based on the experience of previous Platypus victims, the team here believes that the actors probably had privileged admin access to your guys' systems for as long as 6 months.
I don't want to take us off track here, but I really want to have a better understanding of what the IOCs are and how can they actually help us.
Yeah, good question. So IOCs are indicators of compromise. They're like fingerprints of a certain ransomware attack. So for example, we know Platypus likes to disable Windows Defender protection and replace it with a key DLL. So the Keller team will go look through the environment to find a place where Windows Defender is disabled, which will let us know that the Platypus team has compromised that part of the environment. There's hundreds of these types of fingerprints that are associated with Platypus. And so we're gonna need to give you a list of all of these fingerprints so that you guys can go and dust for these prints.
Okay, so when we find those fingerprints, we're going to be able to determine how long the bad actors have been in the environment. It seems like a pretty intensive process, so how long do you think that's going to take?
Yeah, good question. I mean, it really depends. Usually we give your team the IOCs, and they'll go and write scripts to check the environment. And it all really depends on how quickly you guys can turn that around. If you don't even have any of the tools to write these scripts, they'll have to do the search manually, and that can take a while.
Well, we'll get started on this as soon as we can. We still have to cover all the normal SOC traffic too. When we've tried threat hunting in the past, we've mostly just used very manual processes to check configs on critical servers. I wish I could give you a more exact time frame, but since we've never used these tools, it's really hard to estimate, but we'll do our best.
After the external security consultant gives the team the specific information to search for, they spend 12 hours conducting spot checks of the environment not impacted by the ransomware event. The net result is they've found multiple occurrences in the limited number of places they've checked dating back at least 4 months. The board is set to reconvene to hear updates on the data restoration efforts, legal work, and recommendations on next steps. The management bridge call has remained open throughout the night to keep everyone up to date on various team efforts. There's been no significant progress reported on the restoration of the e-commerce systems or the retail point of sale systems.
All right, well, this was my plan of recovery. I probably would have started here maybe a couple days ago, right? But what we're up against are really kind of two different sets of foes, right? We've got what are called the advanced persistent threats. These are the nation state actors, right? These are the people that want to get into your network. They'll figure out a way to do it. They're generally looking for things like fighter jet designs and ships and designs of nuclear power plants, all sorts of things like that. What we often see, and what's on the news every morning when I wake up, is what we call RAS gangs, or ransomware as a service. These can be similar folks, similar personas, coming from the same, trained by the same people, but they're allowed to basically operate without fear of retribution in many countries across the world. These gangs are loosely affiliated. They're constantly kind of shifting things around. They're constantly rebranding and changing their techniques. There was some leaks last year. It was called the Conti leaks, where the internal chats of one of these groups were put out in the public forum. Turns out they had an HR department. They had a bonus structure for recruiting people. They had internal politics, just like John does, here in Keller. So, while we can say it's like, some guy in a hoodie in his mom's basement eating more meatloaf, it's really not what we're up against, right? We're up against many, many different. So the good news of all of this, if there is any, is that dwell time has been significantly reduced, at least in a generality. So dwell time, the amount of time between when the bad guy gets in your network and when they execute their attack, according to Sophos in their latest report, down to 5 days. Last year it was in the 12, 14, 15-day range. There's still plenty of examples of people, 6, 8 months, 10 months, something like that. But in general, the bad guys, especially the RAS actors, are trying to monetize things as quickly as possible, right? So they're really after the money of it. So Keller, 58 hours into this, 5.2 million, still haven't done anything with the bad guys. And I hate to do this to you, but we're going to leave you on the cliffhanger. No scene 6. So in the real full version of this, we do give you some closure. We do tell you what happens. Probably what you're expecting. But what do we do with this data, right? So let's just take a step back, right? So what we call this type of event is a denial of data attack. Because if you think about it, whether they're encrypting your data or taking it out of your four walls, they are doing things to you that can make them money and causes you a lot of harm, right? That harm could be downtime, could be fines, it could be the reputational side of it. IBM released a report last year that said the average cost of a breach is $4.34 million, which does not scare me. However, the thing they said in that report was over 50% of those costs were accrued post 1 year from breach. So there's a significant long tail associated with these because of all the cleanup that we've talked about. Over the last couple of years, the bad guys have gotten really good, right? They know how internal IT operations team, what they do, right? They're looking for backups that were built on Windows platforms. They're looking for repositories hanging off the network, right? They're looking for files with open access. They're looking for copies of databases that somebody put on a share somewhere. They're attacking the cloud too. They're attacking SaaS. Where does a ton of sensitive data lie? Like your email system. Most people over the last couple of years have put that up in the cloud, which is great. The availability is there and all that. But it does not absolve you from having to protect your information and be able to recover it. It's called the shared responsibility model, right? It's a real thing. So next slide. So Rubrik at this point, I think we've got about 7,000 global customers. And within support, we stood up a tiger team. We call them the RRT, the Rapid Response Team. This team has helped hundreds of organizations recover from cyber events. So we've learned a couple things. The first question you want to ask yourself is, will my backups, my backup copy survive an attack? And the second question you want to ask right away is, will my backup environment or my capability survive an attack? We've had so many people focused on getting the data just put somewhere else that they don't realize that they need that actual environment to recover. So that's question number one. Question number two is, how do we begin to recover? Talked about this today. What data changed during the attack? There is no tool that tells you that easy today. How do I get a clean copy? Again, the bad guys have put malware all across your backups, and if you just go and grab a random one, high likelihood you'll reinfect yourself. Or you're going to take the time to grab a slice of the data, put it over here, run it through your EDR, XDR, whatever you got, and iterate. So it's going to take time. Again, time and data loss are your metrics. Third thing, what did they exfiltrate? Is it of value? Do I need to alert? Does it change my response? Fourth thing, how do I recover my organization, my operations, my workflows? Which order do I do them in? What are the most critical to me? Is that something I can automate? Is that something I can test? Is that something I can demonstrate? Oh wow, somebody just asked me about cyber insurance rates. Maybe this is important to them. Right? So there's a lot of different people within your organization that are going to touch this type of thing. And it's a lot different, like I said before, in that DR kind of test you run, right? You've never, 10 years ago, you never had to worry about a SQL server after you recovered it lighting itself back on fire. You do today with cyber attacks. So next slide, here's how we help, right? So whether you're on-prem, you're running workloads you lifted and shifted, or you're using SaaS, Rubrik can make sure you've got recoverability, can ensure you get recovered. We've got encryption detection, which itself, I'm just going to tell you, is not that cool, except for two things. One is, if that encryption detection tells you what data changed so you know what to recover, that's going to be helpful. If your encryption detection against backups is just, oh, it changed at 7% and it's been 6%, not helpful. The other thing, too, is a majority of the attacks we've seen in the last 6 or 8 months have been VM, or at least on-prem, been VM-level attacks, meaning you've got no endpoint protection there. And they can take out a majority of your infrastructure very, very quickly. So how would you detect those? Kind of a hidden vector. And oh yeah, maybe your tools are built upon your VMware infrastructure too for on-prem. So that's going to hurt you on the recovery side. 3, sensitive data discovery. Today, we scan all of your backups and say, you've got sensitive data here, here, and here, open access over here, do something about it. Post-breach, here's what they got. 4, threat hunting. You can run all of your backups. We can scan them for IOCs, YAR rules, whatever you want to use. The nice thing about Rubrik is it's a hidden backup copy. So if you're under attack and you start threat hunting against the hidden backup copy, bad guys aren't going to know you're monkeying around. So they might not raise your rate, right? And last but not least, let's automate as much as we can. Let's demonstrate to the business that we can recover from this. Because in Keller, John said he was good. They test for this, they drill this all the time, but it was very clear they had never done this before. Unfortunately, that's a common occurrence in my travels. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so what do you do with this information? Maybe I made you laugh. Well, probably Donovan made you laugh. I maybe made you cry. I'd probably ask you some questions. So first off, if you want us to bring this to you, the full version, right? The ones where you sit down and read and you see all the videos and all that, we will do it. I've personally hosted 60 of these in the last year. So we'll bring them to you, or we'll come to your city and you can do them with your other peers. If you've got like some information security group, we can do that. However you want to do it, hit the QR code and we'll get you hooked up. 2, stop by the booth. 1352. And then 3, Top Golf tomorrow night, Shooter McGavin, and I think we all know what he has for breakfast. So with that, I want to thank my esteemed colleagues for doing so wonderful today. I want to thank you all for coming. Hope you learned something. Take this back. Go ask the questions. Go be a hero. Thank you.